I said, honey, in your wildest dreams, did you ever think I'd be doing what I'm doing? She said, honey, in my wildest dreams, you don't even show up. Thank you, love. Love you too. All right, I want everybody to try something. Everybody stand. Come on, we got to loosen you up. Stand up. There you go. Stand. All right, now, I want you to do this with me. Do this with me. Shake your hands out. Shake them out. Shake them out. Good, good. Now stop. Stop. Go like this. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. All right. I want you to do this with me. Take your hands. I want you to invert them so your thumbs are down. Go like this. Now take your right hand. Put it over your left. And lock your fingers and lock your elbows. And do not let go for about a month. Hold on. Everybody. You can all do this. Now on the count of 3, you do as exactly as I do. 1, 2, 3. Turn your hands over and wiggle your thumbs. Now go like this. All right, big deal, huh? Okay. There's a formula for that. If you think about that long enough, you'll figure that one out. There's a formula for everything. There's a formula for everything. One of the very first, now, I know that you're getting tired. You've been here all day, so I'm going to be brief. I'm going to be very brief. One of the very first billionaires on the planet was J. Paul Getty. You've heard of J. Paul Getty? J. Paul Getty was once quoted as saying, the formula for success is very simple. Very simple. It only takes 3 things. Early to rise, work hard, strike oil. Good luck, ladies and gentlemen. That's my show. The formula for success is a little more difficult than that, but it's very simple. Now listen to this very carefully. I want to talk with you about the formula for personal and professional, check this out, sustainable success. Sustainable. I don't know about you, but I'm not interested in getting it today and losing it tomorrow. And I'm positive you are not, or you would not have paid the money to come here and sit here for 8 hours to learn how to be successful. The formula for personal and professional, sustainable, last forever success lies within our ability to create the most powerful, emotional, relevant, but this is the most important part, one-of-a-kind, unexpected brand. Ta-da. Our ability to succeed at life at every level is directly linked with our ability to create an emotional, powerful, oh my God, nobody in your industry does this, brand. How many of you believe awareness, marketing, advertising, public relations, how many of you believe awareness builds powerful, sustainable brands? Raise your hands. Oh, almost the whole group. Good, except that is not 100% correct. Take it from me, ladies and gentlemen, I owned and operated a national advertising agency for 20 years. And awareness alone, advertising cannot create a sustainable brand. Awareness is exactly what it is. It's awareness. We're all aware of certain deadly diseases, aren't we? Does it mean we want to run out and get them? Just because we know about something, it doesn't mean we want it. And when you're in business, just because people know who you are, what you sell, what you charge, how to get a hold of you, it doesn't mean they desire you. It means they're aware of you. Nothing more, nothing less. Emotional branding, which is what I'm going to talk with you about today. Emotional branding is the reason why your customers evangelize you. Let me ask you a question. Raise your hands if in your business word of mouth is important to your success. Yes, of course it is. An emotional brand will turn a typical customer into a raving lunatic, loyal evangelist customer for life. Emotional branding boosts profits, builds your bottom line. You cannot be sustainably successful without an emotional brand. It can't happen. Every sustainable, powerful brand that you've ever heard of has an emotional connection to their customers. So what exactly is emotional branding? It's an emotional connection a person has with another person or with an entire organization based on an experience. Based on an experience that is so meaningful, so relevant, and has such an emotional connection that they cannot fathom parting with you. We're talking about a very, very misunderstood, very confusing topic, ladies and gentlemen, branding. This is one of the most misunderstood topics in the world. Some of the top corporate executives do not truly understand that formula, that process for creating that sustainable emotional brand. I'm talking CEOs and COOs and CFOs and EIOs. I mean, they just don't get it. They don't get it. So I'm going to talk with you about how to create a sustainable brand. How you, no matter what you sell, because I promise you, I don't know anybody in the room, but I promise you, you're selling commodities. And here's what I mean by that. If you have somebody else competing with you selling a similar product or service, you're a commodity. You know, what we're going to talk about today is how do you decommoditize? How do you not become a choice, and how do you become the only solution? Now, before I get started, I want to show you a couple things. If we would bring the slides up, please. I want to show you a couple of things off of some websites. Now, PwC is the second largest accounting firm in the world. They're over $32 billion. They're just beneath Deloitte. I do a lot of work with PwC, and in fact, when I land Wednesday, I got on a plane Thursday, and I travel to do another presentation for PwC. They're one of my clients. And I want to show you something. I took this off of their website, and I read it to them. And I said, here's what you are saying to people. As you face changes related to deals, consolidations, debt or equity offerings, or even bankruptcy, we can help you meet those challenges and preserve the value of your business. And I said to them, you do this? Sure we do. I said, no matter what position I'm in, no matter what condition my company's in, you're going to preserve the value of my company? And they just went, So I showed them another one. I said, you have, there we go, cybersecurity and privacy. Very, very important thing. Well, let me read this to you. Multiplying cyber threats have made an effective cybersecurity program a critical business requirement. PwC cybersecurity and privacy practice helps organizations protect against threats, good, propel transformation, and pursue growth. I said, your cybersecurity, the thing that you're going to put on my network to prevent an attack, is going to literally help me innovate and transform my organization? They went, And I said, and your cybersecurity efforts are going to help my company grow? You're going to grow my company? And they went, well. Now here's another one. This is from Infinity. I want you to read this. We are like you. We push ourselves to go beyond our comfort zone. While others might be content with making better machines, we design cars that drive you to challenge the limits of what's humanly possible. I want to read this to you again. We design cars that drive you to challenge the limits of what's humanly possible. Huh? What definition of humanly? What? What does this mean? This is clever copy. Now I want to show you one more. This is from the Hyatt that I'm staying at. Now I want you to know something. Oh my God, it's a beautiful hotel. The food is exquisite. The views are amazing, amazing. But I want to read, this is off of their website from their dining section. I just got this yesterday. Ready? Delight in a variety of five-star cuisines at our restaurants in Kuala Lumpur. Looking for the ultimate Kuala Lumpur dining experience? Listen to this. Embark on an unforgettable culinary journey. I ate there, I don't remember a journey. All right? And savor a selection of gastronomic, that actually made me nervous, delights specially prepared by our master chefs. Check this out. Celebrate delicious moments at the best restaurant in Kuala Lumpur. Wow, that's a pretty bold statement. Now you keep reading. And indulge in a range of blah, 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 blah cuisine while taking a spectacular 360 view. Kuala Lumpur city skyline. Blah, 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 cocktails from one of the best restaurants. You just said you're the best restaurant, and now you're not so sure? Well, which is it? Folks, let me ask you this. I just showed you a few examples of website copy. Can anybody tell me what this really is? Anybody? You want to know what this is? This is a promise. Folks, Anything you write, you say, you put on a website, you put in a brochure, you send in an email on behalf of your company is a promise. It's a commitment. And please believe me when I tell you that promises in this day and age, with all the competition you have, are not meant to be broken. And in fact, they're not even meant to be kept, they're meant to be shattered. They're meant to be shattered. Let me tell you a little story. I want to explain to you the trajectory of how I got here. This is my first book. It was written and released. It was released in 2007. Now, I didn't bring any to sell. I'm not peddling it. That's not why I'm showing it to you. But you can get it on Amazon, I'm just saying. The reason that I wrote this book, I ran a national advertising agency for 20 years. We worked with Fortune 500 companies. We ran their marketing, their strategy. We ran their communications. We ran their co-op funding for Fortune 500 companies all over the country, as well as little mom and pop companies, franchise groups, reseller groups. Let me tell you what was happening. As we're running these very expensive campaigns for these companies, now picture this. You've got a franchise that has franchisees all over the country. They all wear the same uniform. They all sell the same product. It's all priced the same. The signage is the same. The inside of the store looks the same. Now check this out. So we're running campaigns for these folks. Some of the companies are doing marvelous. They're succeeding famously. And other companies not too far from them are failing miserably. They're failing. Same exact product, price, everything, and the same advertising. So who do you think would get the phone call when they're not selling enough product? We do. The advertising agency. Your agency stinks. We're not selling anything. I said, how's traffic? Oh, plenty of traffic. Plenty of phone calls. We're just not selling anything. So here's what we did. This was in defense of my company. I started a program. I started going out and investigating what was going on here. How are they doing so well and they're not making it? So I started to run an investigation, and here's what I discovered. We went all over the country for several months, and we sat inside of locations. We met with field sales reps. We met with CEOs. The companies that were succeeding, you know what they knew? They knew the advertising was merely an awareness vehicle. After that, they had to take over. They focused on culture. They focused on customer retention. They focused on employee happiness. The folks that were failing, they thought the advertising was the magic bullet. And here's what they said. Hey, we're spending all this money with you. You should help us grow sales. So I said, okay. And here's what we did. We started a division, and we started going around and training all of our clients on how to create a culture that didn't match but surpassed that promise that we're putting out there on the airwaves. I said, look, don't spend another dollar with my ad agency if you can't figure out a way to create a culture where people walk in and they get what they were promised. You know what we were doing? We were unselling our clients' brands. They were literally because people would walk in, they wouldn't get what was promised, they're done, they're fed up. So I decided, I sold the agency in 2003, started speaking, training, writing in 2004, and I've been doing it ever since. But ladies and gentlemen, a promise, if it's thought about long enough and you really believe in committing to it, can be pretty powerful. I want to show you a promise. What am I doing? Oh, it's the laser. Here we go. Can anybody tell me who made this promise? Anybody? Disney. You know who said this? Now think about this. The happiest place on earth? You're literally going to say you have the happiest place on earth? This man right here is the person who said it, Walt Disney. Let me tell you something. This is a pretty happy place. Proof. Do you know that they have nearly a 75% all over the world, 75% return rate from first-time visitors? You know, I want to know why that's really amazing? Because, man, that is not a cheap first-time visit. Right? 75% of everybody who goes there one time comes back again. Now, why did Walt Disney say, I want to create the happiest place on earth? Because he had a purpose. And he literally said, I want families, children, I want them to literally discover that there are dreams that can come true. Now, let me tell you why Walt Disney was confident. If you're going to create a brand, If you're going to create some sort of a program that is going to be sustainable, you have to be fanatical about the same thing that Mr. Disney was fanatical and obsessive about, and that is process. You have to be obsessive about creating a process that will get you there. Here's what Walt Disney said. He said, we are going to focus and fanaticize and we're going to obsess over process, and here's why. He said, we cannot possibly give every single guest a magical experience every single time if we don't have the processes that allow us to do so. So let me tell you how obsessive Walt Disney was. When he was starting these theme parks, he used to dress incognito. He would wear a big straw hat, he'd wear, big bulky jackets so nobody would recognize him, and he'd walk around the theme parks. He would go and stand at the exits of the rides, and he would stand there and he would just watch and listen to the children and their parents as they came off the rides. And if their reaction wasn't over the moon, if it wasn't, oh my God, he made mental notes and he went back and made adjustments. He rode incognito the rides with a stopwatch. And if a ride was meant to be 7.5 minutes, but he got in one and it was 5.5, he got in another one, it was 4, he got in another one, it was 8, he would grab all the managers and he'd say, listen to me, here's a stopwatch, come with me, and he would make them ride. And he said, every customer, every guest deserves the same 7.5 minutes of magic. Not some, not others, every. Do you know that if you go to a Disney park, you walk around, you won't see trash anywhere on the grounds? Here's why. Walt Disney used to sit around the parks and he would notice people throwing garbage. And he's like, why are people throwing garbage on my park? But here's what he discovered. He went to other parks, competing theme parks, and he noticed that a person, a human being, no matter where in the world they were, they will only go 30 feet before tossing garbage. They don't care if they had a garbage receptacle or not. I'm not carrying this anymore, and they throw it on the ground. So what did he do? He made sure every park had a receptacle every 30 feet. That's why you will never see garbage on the grounds. And it continues. Raise your hands if you're in a leadership position, please. If you're in a leadership role, raise your hand right now, please. Let me tell you something, leaders. Walt Disney didn't just have the passion for process, he knew how to drive it down to his leadership team, to his people. That passion and obsession for process is alive and well today. Everything about Disney, everything about the technology, everything about the magical bands that allow you to get through the park faster and easier are all because Walt Disney said, fanaticize and obsess over process, because once you have the process, all you have to focus on is the customer experience. Do you know that if you ask somebody that you just met, and you didn't know who they were, you don't know where they work, but let's say they work at Disney. If you said to them, it's nice meeting you, it's great chatting with you, by the way, what do you do? What do I do? Yeah, what do you do? I create magical experiences. Ooh, are you a magician? No. Well, what do you mean? That's what I do. Where do you work? At the happiest place on earth. Okay, I give up. What's the name of your company? Oh, Disney. Oh. Now I want to ask you a question. I want you to think about your organization. I want you to think about you personally. If somebody talking with you said, let me ask you a question. What do you do? How would you define what you do for a living? Think about this, please. This is extremely important, and these are tough. I do a lot of consulting work. Do you know what the first thing I do is when I walk into an organization? I ask them to send 10 of their people down to me, one at a time. 10 people, I don't care who they are and where they're from, just send 10 of your people down one at a time. One at a time, they walk in, I shake their hand, I'm Scott, what's your name? Joe, Jane, Bill. Let me ask you a question. They sit down, and I say to the same 10 people, I say the same question. Let me ask you something, Joe. What do you guys do here? What do we do here? I ask 10 different people all working for the same company. I get 10 different answers. It's known as perceptual reality. What you think you sell and what your customers would love for you to provide are two different things. How well you think you're doing and how well they think you're doing are always two very, very different things. So I want to ask you again, if somebody said to you, what do you sell, how would you define it? Does anybody know who Harley Davidson is? Yes, Harley Davidson? Let me ask you this. What do they sell? Shout it out. Motorbikes. Kind of. They sell motorbikes. but they just get them in the game. Ladies and gentlemen, the stuff that you sell gets you in the game. It's all it does. It gets you in the game because a lot of other people are selling what you sell. Getting in the game is pretty easy. You know what the tough part is? Staying in the game. Keeping that customer, getting that customer to bring more customers to you. That's the tough part. Harley doesn't sell motorcycles. Harley sells lifestyle. Harley sells brand. The Harley riders are not riding a Harley bike, they're living the Harley life. Listen to this. During a national, I need to go back. How do I go back? There we go. During a national television interview, one of the top executives at Harley-Davidson was asked this. And let me tell you why he was asked this question. During the interview, he's talking about everything. This is an executive. Everything but motorcycles. He never mentioned a bike. He never mentioned exhaust. He never mentioned the seat. He talked about soft things. He talked about culture, people, love, and he used this word, lust for my brand. Lust. So after a while, the person doing the interview said, I got to ask you a question. What exactly do you sell? Now, anybody else would have said, what do you live under a rock? We're Harley-Davidson. We sell motorcycles. Not this man. You know what he said? He goes, you want to know what we sell? We sell a 43-year-old accountant. The ability to dress in leather, drive down a street in a small town and make everybody afraid of him. I'm a wiry little guy, but I drive that. It's not about the bike, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great bike. I'm not knocking it, but you know what? There are a lot of great bikes out there. Better built than Harley. They're not Harley. Harley owners and Harley riders aren't riding a bike, they're living the life. You want to talk about a group of brand evangelists? Oh my God. These people have the Harley logo everywhere. Hat, shirt, jacket, belt buckle, wallet, boots, key rings, coffee mugs. This is documented. I'm not making anything up tonight. Nothing. This is all documented. Some of the top corporate executives on the globe have the Harley logo tattooed on their butts. It's true. Hey, you think that's funny? I'm going to say something to you, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. You all figure out a way to get your customers to tattoo your name and logo on their butts, then you've made it. That's the brand you want. Now, true story. About 6 years ago, I'm doing a presentation, and I'm all done, and the CEO come up to me, and he's from Spain. He says, I want to tell you something, and I mean this. He goes, but I will deny telling you because none of my people know this. He's a CEO. He said, the story you told about tattooing on the butts is true. He said, you want to know how I know this? I said, how's that? He goes, because I have one. He said, but I deny telling you. That's the last time I will say it. How about this, ladies and gentlemen? You don't know this. This is a little grocery store chain in the United States. They have about 200, 250 stores. They sell groceries, bread, milk, meat, cheese, fruit, vegetables. They sell the same thing as everybody else. But guess what? Every single year, this little company winds up in Fortune magazine's top 100 companies to work for. Every year, they're in the top 10. Last year, they were number 2. Look at the company they're in. This is a little regional grocery store chain selling groceries, and they wind up number 2 best companies in America to work for. Why is it important to be the best company to work for? Because you cannot create a culture and a passion on the outside if you don't create it on the inside. They have the lowest turnover in the United States in grocery. They have the highest profit margins. You want to know something? When I say turnover, I mean turnover with employees. They have employees that have been with them for 20, 30, 40 years. Now listen to this. They charge 20 to 40% more on all of their items than all of their competition. And do you know what they're doing? They're putting everybody out of business. There are very, very few left around them. So during this growth spurt a few years ago, while they're growing and everybody else is dropping like flies, they did an interview with one of the Wegmans, one of the founders, and they said, let me ask you, how is this possible? How do you charge so much more than everybody and you're staying in business? You're just succeeding wildly and everybody else is failing. How are you doing it? And here's what the founder said. He goes, I'll tell you how. He said, you see, when we started Wegmans, we didn't say, hey, let's start a grocery store chain. He said, when we started Wegmans, we said, let's start a grocery buying experience. He said, let's not do what everybody else is doing. Let's do exactly the opposite. And they created such an amazing environment that people go out of their way and spend more on a grocery store than they could spend across the street. And in fact, during the interview, he said, I'm going to brag and I'm proud of this. You will gladly pay more for all this same stuff here that you can get over there. He goes, but you want to know what? You can get it there, but you can't get it the way you get it here. He said, it is the experience. Now, I want to show you a caveat, because there's a caveat to everything. Here we go. The very same company started a hardware store chain. Hardware. Saws, power tools, nails, hammers, whatever. So they started it in 1974. They died in 2006. They were dying well before 2006, 10 to 15 years. Now listen to this. They start this, they take all of their resources, they're a wealthy family, they say, hey, we know retail. Let's start a hardware store chain. Notice the difference? Let's start a hardware store chain. So they put the brick and mortar up, they start filling the stores, and they start selling product. Things were going great until Home Depot, Lowe's, the big box stores start moving in. And then they couldn't compete on price. What? You kill people charging more in grocery, but you can't compete on price in hardware? Why? How? So of course, when they went under, an interview was done with the local media, with the founder, and they said, how in the world do you do so well in grocery, selling a commodity like groceries, and you can't make it in hardware? And here's what he said. He said, you see, it's very simple, and I've said it many times before. He said, when we started Wegmans, we decided we're going to start, and we're going to sustain a grocery buying experience, unlike any other in the market. He said, when we started Chase Pitkin, we just said, hey, let's start selling hardware. And as soon as somebody came in and started charging cheaper than us, none of our customers were loyal because there was no emotional connection, because there was no unique experience. We couldn't sustain, we had to shut it down. That's the difference. And they said, so what's your advice? And he said, I have one word of advice for anybody in any business. I don't care what line of work you're in. He said, I don't care if you're a physician. I don't care if you run a bookstore. I don't care if you sell hamburgers. He said, I have one word, and that is innovate. You don't have to change what you sell. He said, you have to change how you sell it. Innovate in service, you will succeed and you will sustain. Speaking of innovation, anybody know who that is? Yes, Abraham Lincoln. Steve Jobs, one of the greatest, if not the greatest innovators of our time. I love him, my hero. Now, I saw Steve Jobs doing a product launch in an auditorium a little bit bigger than this. And after he was all done, they did a Q&A, same thing. They were running microphones around, people asking them questions. And a person way in the back took the microphone and goes, Mr. Jobs, congratulations on another new product. He goes, how do you do it? He says, how do I do what? How do you keep inventing all this cool stuff? And he goes, what did I invent? He said, excuse me? He said, what did I invent? I want you to think about this. Steve Jobs and Apple did not invent the PC. They did not invent the cell phone. They did not invent the tablet. They did not invent retail shopping. You know what Steve Jobs did? He took all the things that already exist and he innovated how they enhance and transform another human life. He said, I don't invent, I innovate. And he said, okay then, sir, tell me, how do you innovate? He goes, that's simple. He said, I start with the customer experience and I work backwards from there. Ladies and gentlemen, you want to transform, you want to innovate, you can't do it from your perspective. You have to look at it from the customer's perspective. Steve Jobs said, who am I to take an amazing new technology just because it's an amazing new technology and it's cool? Who am I to take it and cram it down the throats of the market if it doesn't transform their lives? He said, if it's amazing but it doesn't transform humanity, I send it back. Do you know what Steve Jobs used to ask all of his executives before they started working for him? Here was the first question. Thanks for coming in, but I got to ask you one thing. He said, do you want to put a dent in the universe? Do you want to change the world? And here's the one question you have to ask yourself every single time you're in front of a customer or even with your employees. How can we change their world? How can we at least make this moment, maybe this day, the best, transformative? You start looking at things from a customer's perspective. You start saying, what would they love from us that nobody in my industry is providing? You want to talk about disruptive. What is nobody doing? I do training programs, and we break them off into little small groups of 10 or 15. They each get a big flip chart. I give them 30 minutes, and I say, you put yourself in your customer's shoes, and you ask yourself, if you were them looking at you, what would you love from you? And you start coming up with amazing new solutions to turning these customers into evangelists. And the ideas are phenomenal because they stop looking at their business from the same perspective they always have. Here's the definition of innovation. A product, a service, an invention does not become an innovation until it transforms another human life. That's innovation. I'm not asking you to change what you sell. Stay the course. I'm asking you to change how you sell it. I'm not even asking you to change what you say. I'm asking you to change how you say it so that it becomes meaningful. Meaningful to the folks you're serving. So let's talk about disruptive. Are you familiar with this brand, this car? You familiar with Saturn? Yes? Okay, let me tell you the Saturn story. Everybody thinks that they went out of business because they weren't doing well. Oh, contrary. They couldn't keep cars in inventory. They were selling out every single month. I spoke for General Motors about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Big convention, and in Detroit, all the brands were there, including Saturn. And I talked about Saturn and how unique Saturn is and how Saturn has a connection with their customers. And then all of the brand managers came up to me after the presentation. They said, Scott, how can we be more like Saturn? And I said, that's pretty simple. Be more like Saturn. Duh. Let me tell you the story. Saturn can you put that back up, please? In 1982, thank you. In 1982, the CEO then of General Motors got together with the president of the United Auto Workers. It's a union in the United States. They control all the automakers. And he went to this president and he said, we need to do something. We need to shake it up. We need to disrupt the market. And here's why. Foreign car makers are killing us. They're killing us. He said, people don't like our cars anymore and they don't like buying cars from us anymore. I don't know about it here, but let me tell you something. In the United States, the car buying experience is a nightmare. Here's what we do. This is how you buy a car in the United States. You walk up, you go in a lot, you pick out the car you want. Then it begins. Then you gotta go negotiate. So you go into the showroom or the sales room and you sit across from a guy named Slick. And he's sitting at a little teeny desk. And he can only get that number down so far. Then you know what he has to do? He has to go talk to his manager. You know he's not talking to his manager. He's back in the coffee room drinking coffee, watching cartoons. But you know you got to do the dance. That's what it's like. Saturn said, people hate this. It's garbage. He said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to build a different kind of car, and we're going to sell it differently. So here's what the CEO did. He started disrupting the market. He disrupted his own company. He said, we're not buying General Motors parts, every single part. If it doesn't make sense, we'll go somewhere else. So they started buying parts from other manufacturers. They had this fender made of polymer that didn't dent, didn't rust. They had a sandcast head on their engines. They had a special transmission they called Smart Drive. The car was awesome. It wasn't the greatest car in the world. It was a really good car. But here was the real secret sauce. They trained all of their new dealerships on a whole new way of selling cars. And here's what they said to them. No negotiating. None. So as soon as Saturn starts, people walk onto the lot and they think it's the same dance. So they walk up and they go, I like that car a lot. I like that. I think I want that one. What are you going to do for me on price? What do you mean, what am I going to do for you? What are you going to do? I can do anything. You're not going to negotiate? Nope. That's the price. It's not going to change. Fair price. Great car, great price. I will tell you this. That is a good car. It's not the greatest car in the world, but I will promise you this. You buy that car from me, and I swear to you, because of the level of service we're going to give you, you will never buy another car again from anybody else. And here's why Saturn was selling out of cars. Because it became this following of people that were just passionate about the brand. They would buy a car for themselves, then one for their wife, then one for their daughter, then one for their son. They had 4 or 5 cars, Saturns in every driveway. Listen to this. You want to talk about a following? Saturn decided one year, hey, let's have a picnic. We'll call it a family reunion at our factory in Tennessee, a state in the U.S. Let's have a family reunion. We're only going to invite Saturn owners. So they think, well, what are we going to have? Maybe like, a few hundred people, 1,000 people. On 2 separate occasions, over 50,000 people drove from all over the country to this place in Tennessee because they own a Saturn. That's sick. Driving across the country because you own a car to go to a picnic? You know what it is, though? It's a following unlike any other. These people didn't want to just belong to Saturn. They wanted everybody else to know they belonged to Saturn. Now, wow, an amazing story, disruptive. It should have lasted forever. You want to know why they failed? Because the new CEO came in and he said, all right, enough of this garbage. Everybody get back in line. Do it the way you're supposed to. Buy GM parts. We're not going to start cannibalizing our other brands. Sell the car the same way everybody else sells a car. And eventually, because it was an okay car, they put them out of business. An okay car couldn't keep cars in inventory when it was a customer experience. When the customer experience changed, they couldn't sell them anymore. It's all about the experience. You want to be disruptive? You've got to figure out a way to change the paradigm in your industry. Now, I'm not saying to be destructive. Who are the folks in the audience that actually asked during the press conference? Are you here about being destructive versus disruptive? Let me tell you, the great question from somebody during the press conference, and the young man said, at what point does disruption become destruction? And I took the microphone and I said, when you make change just for the sake of making change, or just for the sake of satisfying your ego. If you have a purpose, and everybody buys into that purpose, that mantra, then disruption is good because you're doing it for all the right reasons. If you're disrupting just because you want to make a few quick bucks, it's not sustainable. Now, I want to ask you this. If somebody stopped you and they asked you what you did and you told them, and then they even worked with you and they got to know you, and then one day they're sitting around at a party and they're with friends and they're eating and they're drinking and they start talking about you. They talk about you and your company. These are people who buy from you. What do you think people think? If somebody goes, oh, so-and-so and so-and-so, blah. What do they think about you and about your brand? Now, I've got something for you here now to think deeper. Strike that word think and replace it with the word feel. If people are talking about you, who know you, who experience you, who buy from you, do they have an emotional connection? Do they feel something? Or is it just a recollection of what you do and what you sell? If they don't have an emotional charge, when your name comes up, you're not communicating effectively. I want to show you a very serious video on the art of communication. Please watch this video.
Das hier ist mein Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät, das müssen wir das Überlebensradar. Mayday, Mayday. Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you... over. We are sinking. We are sinking.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We are sinking. We're sinking.
What are you thinking about?
Yeah, I know. That has nothing to do with my presentation. Nothing. Somebody emailed that to me and I said, now that's funny and I'm going to share it with these people. That was good. All right, folks, let's move along here. I just got done asking you, if somebody asked you what you do, how would you define what you do? Now I want you to change your gears a little bit here. If somebody said to you, that's cool, I get it, I get what you do, that's cool. And then if they said to you, let me ask you this, why do you do this? Why do you work there? Why do you sell this? How would you answer that? Can you answer what you do and why you do it in such a meaningful way that it creates intrigue? In such a way that people feel like they're actually in the presence of something special. Now, please understand, you don't have to be working for a company that's trying to find a cure for cancer. I don't care what you sell. Groceries, hardware, pizza. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you sell. As long as your why, your purpose is bigger than the what, the product, even the service. Here's a story. I was in the back of a room getting introduced by the CEO of a technology company out in California. So she gets up, and she's, I don't know, late 40s, and very, very commanding presence, very, very stunning. And she walks up on stage, and of course, and it was her company, 600 people, and they all stand up and give her a standing ovation before she even starts. She walks on stage, and she starts talking, and as she's talking, she unbuttons her jacket, she takes it off, folds it, and puts it on the stage. I'm thinking, my God, she just got up there. Is it that warm up there? And as she's talking, she starts rolling up her sleeves. She's doing this. And I'm thinking, she's going somewhere. She said, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been in this company long enough, and I mean just a few months, you've seen me. I'm the CEO. You've seen me in the boardroom having meetings with bankers, with investors. She said, you've seen me in the parking lot picking up trash. You've seen me rolling my sleeves up with my suit in the warehouse because we're shorthanded stocking shelves. She said, there's not a single thing I won't do for this company. And she said, and if anybody ever asks you, hey, will you do this? And you say, no, that's not my job. She said, you don't belong here. Let me explain something to you, the difference between a job description and a job role. You've got a knife. There's a difference between function and purpose. The function of a knife is to cut. Yes? To cut. Now, depending on which side of the knife you grab, it can either help you or hurt you. Does anybody know what the purpose of an acorn is? To become an oak tree. You have employees, you have people in your organization, even you, if you don't have a supervisor, you are all meant to become oak trees. But here's what happens in organizations. The reason why companies don't have that passion, that culture, is because people don't really feel like their role is greater than their job description. Here's your title, here's your description, here's your pay, go do your job. So they feel like, well, it's just, I come in at 8, I leave at 5, this is what I do. A real leader will say to people, that may be your job title, but you know what your role is? Your role is whatever it takes to make this the greatest brand in this industry. So, let me explain to you what makes a great culture. All great organizations, sustainable, Netflix-type organizations, are organizations that have a culture of passion, meaning, and purpose. And like I said, you don't have to be working for a company trying to find a new pharmaceutical drug or a cure for cancer. It doesn't matter, as long as your why. You heard Mark. Mark said, we didn't say let's sell DVDs, let's stream video. He said, let's tell a story. That was their purpose, and that's why they are who they are today. All great organizations are organizations that attract and keep talented, productive, passionate people. But all of this that I'm talking with you about, all this culture, all this passion, starts from the top. Without leadership that have mantra. I don't like mission statements. Did I tell you this already? I don't like them. Let me tell you why I don't like mission statements. Because a few leaders got together and they said, hey, let's write something clever that everybody thinks. It's just like that words on the website. Let's just write something that'll keep people moving around and navigating through our website. No, you don't write a mission statement that you don't feel. A mantra is something that comes from the heart. You believe it. And then you get everybody on board in your organization to buy into it and believe it as well. And that's how you create that culture. Now I want to talk about transformative growth. You cannot have transformative, disruptive growth unless you have purpose behind it. Let me tell you a few discoveries, inventions, and why they were invented. If you take a look, I spoke for AstraZeneca last year, pharmaceutical company. My entire presentation was the purpose behind the science. You look at every medical discovery, and it had a purpose behind it. The man who discovered the penicillin. You want to know why? Because he was in World War I over in France. He was from Great Britain, and he watched young men die from simple wounds because of infections. It aided him until he finally came up with something. Now let me show you a couple of inventions that I know you know about. The ATM. You familiar with an ATM? How did an ATM get invented? Do you think somebody sat around one day and said, I'm bored. I think I'm going to invent an ATM. It's not how it worked. Here's how it worked. This man right here, Donald C. Wetzel, was a vice president of DocuTel. He was an engineer. And he tells this story. One day on a Friday, he went to his bank to get money out for the weekend. And he stood in a line like that with other people. They stood in line trying to get their own money for over 2 hours. So he's standing there and he's going, this is insane. This is insanity. He said, we're all losing over 2 hours of our lives. We can't get it back. This is Friday. I'm losing 2 hours of my Friday because I'm trying to get my money. Now listen what Donald Wetzel did. He could have sat there and gone, we need more tellers. We need more bank locations. We need to be open later. All typical. But he didn't. So he went to Bank 1. And he said to Bank 1, I stood in line for over 2 hours and sold it to about 65, 70 other people. He said, let me ask you this. It's my money. Do you agree with me that if it's my money, I should be able to get it out anytime I want? They go, yeah, in theory. In theory? He said, let me tell you something. Right now, I can only get my money out 9 to 5, Monday through Friday at all your branches. 9 to 1 on a couple of branches on Saturday. He said, what if I need my money at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, 1 a.m. on a Sunday? It's mine. Don't you agree I should be able to get my money? And they went, in theory. So he said, do you agree that that is fair and that is a right we should have? And they said, yes. He said, then let me take care of it. And Donald C. Wetzel went back and he said, we don't need more branches. We don't need more tellers. We need a way for us to get our money when we want it. And he invented the ATM. I want to ask you a question. Did this change the way you live forever? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Wetzel, for looking at personal financing from a completely disruptive perspective. How about this one? In 1973, Dr. Martin Cooper and Motorola set up the very first base station in New York City and began working with the very first portable cellular telephone. Do you remember those bricks, those ginormous shoulder straps? Do you remember that? Yeah. That was actually the same year hernia surgery skyrocketed. Why did Mr. Cooper invent that thing? Look at that thing from an old James Bond movie. He tells this story. You see, Mr. Cooper used to be an employee of Motorola. He left. He was an executive. He left. He became a consultant. As he's traveling around the country and around the world consulting, every time he wanted to call a colleague, a customer, a family member, he had to find a payphone. He had to dig through his pocket for exact change. He had to wait in line. And then he had to take some gross, infested thing that 1,000 people a day are breathing on and put it against his face. So he said, this is ridiculous. Now think about this. He didn't say, we need cleaner phones. We need more pay phones. We need pay phones that don't take money. They take something else. He thought about it and he thought about it. He went to Motorola and he said, you want to be disruptive? That's exactly what he said. He goes, you want to change the playing field? You want to change the paradigm? Do you want to be a player? They said, sure. He said, do you agree that I should be able to make a phone call anywhere I want from any place to anybody without putting that thing against my face? Do you agree we should be able to do that on our own somewhere else? And they go, in theory. He said, no, not in theory, in reality. He said, this is what we deserve. And Martin Cooper invented the cell phone. I want to ask you this. Did this change the way you live forever? Would you say more than anything in the last 40, 50 years? More than anything. Thank you, Mr. Cooper, for looking at telecommunications from a disruptive perspective. Anybody know who this is? How smart are you? My goodness. And excited. Thank you. This man was standing in Paris on a rainy night trying to hail a cab. He was trying to hail a cab. Couldn't get one. All the cabs were either used or they were shut down for the day. He stood there for about an hour. Now, he could have said, we need more cabs here in Paris. We need cabs to stay open longer. They can't just be, closed. He didn't think like that. Here's what he said to himself. He tells a story. He goes, look at all these citizens, these just normal people driving their own cars. I'm willing to bet that every one of these people would take me to my hotel if I paid them to do so. And this man, Travis Kalanick, invented Uber. The fastest growing startup in the history of startups. Then in April of this year, they merged, pulled out of Malaysia, and now you have Grab. This is part of the Uber organization. Now I want you to think about this. He could have said all those other things, but he didn't. He was disruptive. He was disruptive innately. He said, this is not, we're going to change the paradigm, we're going to change the playing field. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to be disruptive, if you're going to change the market, you cannot look at it the way everybody looks at it. You have to put yourself in your customer's shoes. You have to think of different ways, innovative ways. And you know what? I heard Mark's presentation. Mark said the same thing. He goes, don't just sit there and think about it. Try it. Whatever idea you have, put that pen and paper down and actually try it. You've got the tools at your disposal. I want to talk to you about the most important part of building a brand, and that is emotion. Ladies and gentlemen, none of the other stuff matters, honest to God. Everything that every speaker said today, everything that you hear about artificial intelligence, and believe me, yes, artificial intelligence is here to stay, but I read an article not too long ago, and it said this. It was an expert in AI, and the expert said, there will never ever be a time when artificial intelligence replaces humanity. Why? Because artificial intelligence doesn't have emotion, and they don't have empathy. And we'll always need that human connection. Let me talk to you about the importance of emotion. Dr. Abraham Maslow was a behavioral psychologist. He died in the early 70s, and I studied him in college and university. And Mr. Maslow, Dr. Maslow, taught us that it's not about what you say. You can make blank promises, you can make open statements, you can do and say whatever you want to do and say. But he said you have to understand it's about human behavior. It's about human behavior, and it's about understanding that emotion determines almost every decision we make. And in fact, this man right here, Dr. Antonio Damasio, he's a world-renowned neuroscientist. He said emotions are not separate from reason. They're the foundation of reason because they tell us what to value. Dr. Antonio Damasio and his colleagues have proven that 90 to 95% of every decision we make, honest to God, every choice, every purchase, every relationship we enter into is based on emotion. Now, I have to tell you this. When I've done these programs many, many times, and a few different times I've had people come up to me and say, I loved your presentation, but I disagree with that whole thing about emotion. I said, why is that? Because I'm a very rational person. Oh, are you? Very. I do all the research, and I do all the homework, and do you know what we do, ladies and gentlemen? This is what we do as human beings. We're not rational animals. We emotionally commit to something or someone, and then we do all the homework and the research to rationalize and justify that emotional decision. That's how we live. Let me show it to you scientifically. This is your brain. Don't worry, this is the most cerebral I will get on you all day. Ooh, need new material. Let me explain very quickly how this brain works. That black part, the reptilian, is also known as your brainstem, the oldest part of your brain, 100% responsible for survival. You don't have to worry about it because it's automated. That brain tells you to eat when you're hungry. That brain puts you to sleep when you're tired. That brain makes you drink when you're thirsty. It takes care of our survival. We don't think about it. Now, the next part of the brain, the limbic, much younger. This part of the brain is 100% responsible for memory and emotion. Every emotion you and I feel, love, anger, desire, hate, fear, anxiety, it comes from the limbic. It doesn't come from here. You hear people all the time, oh, I should have gone with my gut. No, you should have gone with your limbic. Your gut stores and processes food. The next part of the brain is the neocortex. The youngest part of the brain, 100% responsible for processing language and data. Why am I showing you this? That's the part of the brain that people in business use the most. We talk all about what we have, how much it's going to cost, how we're going to deliver it to you, how long we're going to be in business, how many hours. That's all we do. Instead of talking about, why are we doing this? Why are you working with me? You want to hear this is counterintuitive to business. You don't want to attract people who need what you have because they're shopping for price. You want to attract people who buy why you buy. You want to attract people who believe what you believe. If you could take this down, I'm going to tell a story here very quickly. If you could take the slide down, thank you. I want to tell you something. I'm going to show you how saying something a little differently has so much greater impact. And I'm going to tell you the same exact story. Same story, and it's a true story, please believe me. I would not make this up. It's a true story, but I'm going to tell it two different ways, all right? Two different ways, same exact information. You decide which one is more compelling. You ready? I belong to a foundation, to a charitable organization. The organization was started to educate parents, grandparents, caretakers on the dangers that lie in and around the house and the environment for little children, toddlers. And we are specifically focused on tip-over accidents. So we go out and we educate people. Listen to what we did. We built this beautiful website. Oh, it's beautiful. We bought thousands and thousands of brochures, created our own brochures, and we go out and we buy anti-tip straps. We repackage them, and we give them away. To date, we've given over 300,000 of these away. So here's what we do. We go to parent-teacher groups. We go to daycares. We go to pediatric offices. We make the presentation and we offer them the solution because we're bent on making sure that children are not in harm's way. Now I want you to be honest with me, and I'm not going to tell you the name of the foundation, that's not my agenda, but based on that presentation with all of the information, raise your hands if you would be compelled to get involved. Nah, one or two hands in the whole room. Okay, here we go. Presentation number 2. You ready? Hey, do me a favor. Raise your hands if you have children or grandchildren, please. Okay, almost the whole room. Wonderful. Here's what I would like you to do. If you have a child, doesn't matter what age, I want you to close your eyes right now. Please close your eyes. And I want you to visualize one of your children. Doesn't matter who it is. Visualize that child, feel the love. And I want you to imagine, just feel it if they're a toddler, rolling around on the floor, going to the park. If they're a little baby, giving them a bath and tucking them in the bed and ooh, smelling that baby smell. If they're older and you only get to see them on holidays, feel that hug. Feel the love. Now I want you to imagine you just got a phone call and you'll never see that child again. Open your eyes, please. That's the call I got. September 11th, 2012. I was standing at the Dallas airport, Dallas, Texas, in the U.S. About 30 minutes from boarding, my cell phone rang. It was my wife, my hysterical wife. She called to tell me that our 2-year-old granddaughter was just killed when she pulled a television on top of herself. Now, I'm not telling you this because I want your sympathy. I don't want it. And I don't know how to say it without sounding like a jerk. I just don't. I don't want it. I don't need it. But I want to tell you a story. Listen to this. Our granddaughter was 1 month shy of 3, becoming independent. Our daughter was a single mom, lived in an apartment with our granddaughter, and every night after dinner she'd clean up, and they would go out and they would watch a movie. Our granddaughter's favorite movie was Madagascar. So one night after eating pizza, she said, "Mommy, can we watch Madagascar?" And she said, "Sure, baby, go on out and get the movie in. Mommy will be right out and I'll plug it in." Now, our daughter had those big heavy tube-style TVs, had one of those on a TV tray, a drawer with all the DVDs, and on top of the TV it had a DVD player. So our granddaughter now is almost 3 and she wants to do this stuff on her own. So she opens up the drawer, she gets out Madagascar, she stands on the drawer to reach the DVD player, get cantilevered, tipped over, fell on her, crushed her, and killed her. So a few weeks after the funeral, my wife and I are sitting around one night and we're drinking a bottle of wine. And I kept saying, I was angry. I have to be honest with you, I wasn't just sad, we were angry. And here's why we were angry. I said, how in the world does a 140-pound television fall on top of a 28-pound baby? How does this happen? I said, this has to be the freakiest accident in the history of the universe. She said, I know it, I can't believe it. Why us, why us, why us, why us? We got up next morning and I started doing some research. And you know what we discovered? In the United States alone, inside of every 2 weeks, a child is killed exactly that way. In the United States alone, every 20 minutes, a child is sent to the emergency room from a tip-over accident, from broken bones to traumatic brain injury to death. 28,000 children every year are sent to the emergency room because of tip-over accidents. And my wife and I are staring at these statistics, and I said, oh no, we're going to stop this. So you know what we did? We started a foundation. Listen to what we did. We built this beautiful website. We went out and we created and printed thousands of brochures. We buy anti-tip straps. We take them, we repackage them in our own packages, and we give them away. To date, we've given away 300,000. We go to parent-teacher groups. We go to daycare meetings. We go to pediatric offices, and we show them what the problem is, and we offer a solution. And you want to know why? Because I am bent. We are bent on making sure this doesn't happen to anybody else. Now, I want to ask you a question. Based on that presentation, raise your hands if you'd be compelled to get involved. Yes. You want to know why? It's pretty simple. Because you felt it. Can I tell you something, ladies and gentlemen? I've got case study after case study. I just don't have the time. Because I work with corporations, big and small, all over the globe. And every single case study proves, once again, that if a customer emotionally connects with the brand, they will never leave it. The reason you would get involved now is because you can relate. If you have a child, you're going, oh my God, that would be awful. I can't imagine it. We are not rational animals. We're not. Let me tell you this. We're not rational. And in fact, I got one more for you. I thought I had a quote. This is a true story. I'm going to lighten it up a bit here. I know it's kind of like, that was awful. It's true. But here's another one. I fly 200 to 250,000 miles a year. And for years and years, I flew Delta. A month ago, my wife and I moved. Our kids are all grown and gone. We decided to sell the house, and we moved down to Charlotte, North Carolina. It's an American Airlines hub. So I start flying American Airlines, and I'm going, this doesn't feel right. I am such a Delta guy. This just feels weird. And its service is not the same. It's the same. Didn't feel the same. And this is what I said to myself. The first time I was on an American flight about 3 weeks ago, I swear to you, I thought this to myself. I'm sitting in the seat, and I'm looking around, and I'm going, God, I wonder if anyone from Delta knows I'm on an American plane. Do you think they care? But that's how emotionally connected I am. That's how hard it was to make the move. Ladies and gentlemen, people don't choose rationally to listen to your message and then have a feeling about it. They listen to your message because they have a feeling about it. Let's talk about perceptual reality. I told you about it before. All it is this. What you think about you and what others think about you are very, very rarely connected. Very rarely are they in alignment. So, how do we get it in alignment? I want to tell you a story. I was told that I could tell this story. Raise your hands. Is anybody from Hilton here? Okay, good. Because I got a good one for you. So a few years ago, I'm at a Hilton, and I've got a presentation that afternoon. So I'm in the restaurant eating breakfast. Now, I don't know about you, but every time I'm about to eat, I check the silverware and the kitchenware, and I make sure that everything's clean. So I'm sitting at a little table for two, and like most restaurants, I got these ceramic mugs. And I look at the mug sitting in front of me, and it's filthy. So I move it over there, and I take the other one, and it's clean. So the waitress comes over, and she said, would you like some coffee? Yes, please. She's all done pouring my coffee, and I picked up the dirty mug, and I handed it to her. And I said, you might want to run this back through the dishwasher. It's very dirty. She looks at it, and she goes, no, it's not dirty, it's stained. And she put it back down on the table. And I said, it's stained? She goes, yeah, everybody thinks they're dirty. I said, everybody thinks they're dirty and you put it back on the table? She goes, if you knew how much coffee we pour and we run it through the hot dishwasher, it bakes it on, it's stained. Now I want to ask you a question. Where in the world does this young waitress get that mentality and that verbiage? Anybody know? From her supervisor. Her supervisor probably said, you know what? Don't worry about it. They're not dirty, they're stained. Just tell the customers they're not dirty, they're stained. So I'm all done. I head home a few days later. I call Hilton headquarters. I said, can I please speak to somebody high up in customer care? They give me the vice president of customer care. I tell her my story. She goes, oh my God, that's horrible. I said, it is. I said, well, look, I don't want you to give me a credit. I had a fine state. I said, but I want you to know that's very, very important. And I told her the whole story, how she said it's stained. I thought it was dirty. I said, everybody thinks they're dirty. So I said, let me ask you a question, ma'am. I said, what would it cost to replace one of these mugs? She goes, I don't know, 25 cents, 50 cents. And I said, do you know what a meeting planner does? She said, no. I said, a meeting planner spends the majority of their life traveling around scoping out property to see if it's good to bring their group in. I said, what if I was a meeting planner and I decided I'm not bringing my group into Hilton or any Hilton ever again because you serve food on dirty kitchenware? She said, that'd be very costly. I said, are you at a computer? Yes. Do you have internet connection? Yes. I said, here's my website. Plug it in. So she plugs it in and I there I am like this, international speaker. She said, is that you? I said, that's me. And I said, guess what? I have a blog. And I said, I reached millions of people. I wrote about this. Oh my God, you didn't. And I said, no, don't worry, I didn't use your name, and I didn't. I just said I just used a large national chain. I failed, however, to tell her that in front of thousands of people all over the world, I say it live. Oh, bad boy, bad boy. I said, what if I blogged your name and told the story, reaching millions of people? She said that'd be very costly. And I said, ma'am, one more thing and I'll let you go. I know you're busy. I said, I looked at that mug after the young lady left. It was definitely stained. It was clean. I said, but I thought it was dirty. And according to her, everybody thinks it's dirty. Is it clean or is it dirty? She said it's dirty. And when I get off this call, I'm going to send an email blast out to every property on the planet and let them know what happened. Here's why I'm telling you this story. It doesn't matter how you look at your business and how wonderful and everything's in place and the press and it's exactly the way I want it. If your customer doesn't feel it and they look at it differently, that's reality. It doesn't matter. And please understand, you may be 100% correct. But if the customer perceives it a different way, that is reality. So how do you align your reality with theirs? It's very simple. Self-awareness. Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't self-absorption. This is not, being self-indulgent. This is not, thinking you're better than everybody. Self-awareness is being 100% honest with who you are and what you're capable of and what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And in fact, here's what self-awareness will help you do. You'll know thyself. You'll know thyself, and when you know thyself, you'll know your strengths. You'll know your weaknesses. You'll know your character. You'll understand how you impact others, and you'll look at yourself from other perspectives. I want to take you through, I'm almost done. Hang in. We doing good? You good? Okay. We got about another 2 more hours, right? 2 hours. Start passing out the blankets and the pillows. If you have anywhere in your corporate mantra, your website, anything, that your mission in life is to have 100% customer satisfaction, get rid of it. I swear to you, get rid of it. Why would I say get rid of a mantra of 100% customer satisfaction? Because there's no correlation between a satisfied customer and a loyal customer. Zero, none. You want to know what the definition of a satisfied customer is? They'll stay with you until the next best deal comes along. That's a satisfied customer. How do you get from satisfied to loyal? There's an abyss. How do you get there? Here's how. You have to shatter their expectations. Here's the big question, my friends. How in the world are you going to shatter my expectation, let alone even meet my expectation, if you don't know what it is? Nobody has this conversation. Nobody sits down with a customer and says, I need to ask you a question. What are you expecting from me? What do you mean? Exactly what I'm saying. You've given me this opportunity to work with you. I need to know, what are you expecting of us, of me, of us? How can I possibly give you what you would love and what you deserve if I don't even know what you're expecting? You're seriously asking me this question? Absolutely. And you know what they're going to say to you? They're going to say, you know what I would love? You know what I would love? Now here's what you do. You take all these notes from all these conversations, you go back to your place of business, you meet with every single person at your organization, and you put a process together that blows those expectations out of the water. That's when you create loyalty. Folks, we expect to get what we want. Do we not? When you go to a store, to a restaurant, do you expect to get what you went for? Yes or no? Okay, let's say you go and you get it. Are you blown away? No, you wouldn't have gone if you weren't expecting to get it. If you go and you don't get it, you're disappointed. If you do get it, no big deal. Unless they blow you away with the process. Then you know what happens? It's magic. If the process is unique, you stop talking about the food you ate, the price you paid, the thing you bought, how big it was, and you start talking about the people and the place you bought it from. And that's how you build a brand. I read an article 2 years ago, Wall Street Journal. Listen to this. It said service globally is so poor right now that consumers are recalibrating their expectations. We're recalibrating our expectations? We're literally lowering our own bar? I read another article that said within 2 months, 40% of everybody surveyed cannot remember the name of the people and the place they bought their stuff from. You know what they remember? What they paid for it. They remember what they paid for it, but they can't remember who they bought it from. You want to know why? Because service stinks. It does. It's bad. People just are, they're just transactional at best. Here you go, here's your change, next. And that's what it's like. No matter where we go, people are just in too much of a hurry. They forget how to treat humans like humans. Here's a little anecdote for you. Talking about forgetting. An older couple, they were out on a walk. They lived in a retirement community. They ran into another older couple. And the one guy says, "Oh my God, 2 weeks ago, my wife and I went to this Italian restaurant. Oh, it was phenomenal. He said the food, the wine, everything was so fantastic. I'm telling everybody, and I'm telling you, you gotta go, you gotta go." So the guy goes, "Okay, we'll go. What's the name?" "Ooh, the name. He's staring at his wife. "Oh, come on. You gotta help me here. Help me. It's a flower. Comes out in the spring. Doesn't last very long. Very beautiful. Long stem, thorns." The guy goes, "Rose? That's it, Rose. Hey, Rose, what's the name of that restaurant you and I went to?" Men. All right. I'm at the favorite part of my presentation. We're almost at the end, but here's the favorite part. You want to know why? It's the secret to life. I did an interview today with a TV station around 1 o'clock today, right after lunch. And the young lady asked me, how different is it culturally to try to get people to create this emotional brand? And I will tell you this. The one constant is this. We're all wired the same. We all want the same. We want to be treated like humans with compassion. Here's the secret to life. You ready? Empathy. This is it. Empathy. And guess what? Here's the good news. You're wired for it. Every single human being is born with something in their brain that gives them the ability to feel another person's joy or pain without ever saying a word. They can just feel it. It's physiological. It's amazing. We pick up on it. We go, "Oh, I want to help that person." Now, we all have it, but we all don't use it. I mean, we can walk by somebody and go, "Oh, no. Or we can want to sincerely do something about it. I want to tell you something. Here's a secret to life in work. You need to put yourself in your customer's shoes and ask yourself this. If I were them, and I don't care what I've got going on in my life, if I were them looking at me, what would I love from me? This is difficult to get your head around, so let me put it into a personal thing. Raise your hands if your children still live at home, please, if you have kids at home. Okay, a lot of you, good. No, we all do this. We go home at the end of the day. We go home, had a long day, had a hard day, got stuck in traffic, whatever it is. We go home and we're going to look at our home world from our perspective, our big important perspective. So the door opens up. "Mommy, Daddy, guess what?" "Okay, okay, look out. Here comes a significant other. Hey, hon, guess what? You know what? Where's the remote? Give me 45 minutes. Let me unwind." This is what we do because we're looking at the home world from our perspective. Now I want you to try something. No matter what you do, and I don't care what happened to you during the course of your day. And I'm not saying that because I'm cold. I'm saying that because your kids don't care. Do you think your kids care what you do for a living? Honest? Do you think they care? I want you to try a little experiment. The next time you're home with your family eating dinner, try an experiment. Start talking about your job. Then look over at your children's faces and watch how quickly their eyeballs glaze over and roll into the backs of their heads. They don't care what you do. They don't care about how long it took, how much it cost, how painful it was, your feet hurt, it took you forever, the gas is expensive. They don't care about all that stuff. You know who else doesn't care? Everybody. Nobody cares. Nobody. So try this. You go home at the end of the day. That door opens up. No matter what happened to you, put yourself in those little people's shoes and ask yourself this. I know what I feel like right now, but you know what? If I were this little guy, this little girl looking at me, what would I love from me at this very moment? I promise you, unless you have ice coursing through your veins, and I know you don't, you will not be able to go. Excuse me, pardon me, Pat. You won't do it because you're no longer looking at your world from your perspective. I'm going to tell you something that happened to me over 20 years ago that changed my life. Changed my life. I was running my agency. We're growing. I'm busy. I'm traveling. I'm always away from home. My kids are little. My wife's taking care of that. And here's what I'm thinking. They're never going to grow up. It's always going to be like this. I'm on my way to work. And I've got National Public Radio on my car, and I'm listening to this child psychologist. And here's what he said. He said, the biggest mistake we make as parents is we dismiss our children's trauma. We dismiss their trauma. He said, we don't do it because we don't love them. We love them. We do it because we consider their trauma insignificant. He said, we have big problems, big issues. We've got a career to manage, bills to pay, a mortgage on our home, love's going haywire. And he gave a couple of examples. And I'm sitting there in traffic, frozen at a traffic light, listening to this because I'm going, this is me. He said, your little 4-year-old girl comes running up to you, Mommy, Daddy, I lost my teddy bear. Oh, she's bellowing. Oh my God, I lost my teddy bear. Do you know what we do? Little 4-year-old lost a teddy bear. Oh, come here, sweetie, come here. Okay, calm down, calm down. Okay, go play, go play. Want to get her a teddy bear? Yeah, maybe this weekend. It's a teddy bear. The psychologist said that 4-year-old losing her teddy bear is the same amount of pain and trauma as you and I losing our home. Losing our home. It's her world. She's 4. She can't get her 4-year-old brain around it. She had it. It's gone. She can't deal with it. We don't see it. He gave another example. Your son comes home from school. Mom, Dad, Ricky called me a jerk in front of my friends, and they laughed at me, and they ran away. What do we do? Especially as fathers, what do we do? Oh, come here, you knucklehead. Tough it up, tough it up. Go play, go play. Come on, noogie. Go play. Don't be so silly. They're just kids. Psychologist said that little boy having his friends turn on him is the same amount of pain and trauma as you and I discovering, you ready for this? Our spouse is cheating on us. He said he wants to die. He literally is dying. We don't see it. We're all wrapped up in all this other stuff. We do the same thing in business. We look at a customer and we go, there's an opportunity for a sale. Instead of, there's an opportunity for a relationship. You change the way you do these things. You change your perspective. You ask yourself that magical question. If I were them looking at me, I promise you it'll change everything about you. Everything. The way you live, the way you love, and the way you serve. Now, I just looked at my watch, and we're kind of running out of time. So I'm going to blow through these last 2 slides, which is a shame because I'm telling you, this stuff was so cool, and it would have changed your lives forever, but oh well, we're out of time. All right. I want to show you a graphic, and it's very telling, and it doesn't matter what part of the world you live in. Every one of us was born after that 9, and every one of us is going to realize that other thing on the other end. It's inevitable. It's life. The most important part of that graphic is that thing in the middle. That's known as your legacy. That's your dash. It's currently your destiny as well as your legacy. Ladies and gentlemen, I got wonderful news for you. Your past does not determine your future. If you're not happy with the things you've done or the places you've been or where you are, you don't have to stay there. You currently have the ability, the gift, the power to forge this dash. And I want you to think about this. How are you going to do it? What are you going to do with it? We come in contact with a lot of people every single day of our lives. What are we doing with it? Are we transforming lives like Steve Jobs? Are we enhancing the lives of those around us? Or are we just getting through the day, through the week, paying our bills, and moving on to the next paycheck? Linda Ellis wrote a book. It's a little coffee table book called The Dash. And I took one little piece out of it to read to you to close. She writes, "For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash." Here's my parting wish to you, and I mean this so sincerely, so sincerely. I hope you figure out a way to make your dash the most transformative dash of all. Bless you. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Scott, we'd like to take some questions.
Yes.
Okay. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, just raise your hand up high if you can have the lights so we can actually see. And just get the attention. Just raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question. Do we have a question? Okay.
I think we right here.
Over there. Can we have your name, please?
Yeah, my name is Al. I'm a student, psychology student at Health University. And my question is, as entrepreneur, I have to consider my customer psychological behavior more than anything else if I want to come up with a great relationship or invention or business.
Yes. Raise your hand and show me where you are. I can't see you. Oh, where?
Right at the
Over
back.
there.
Oh, in the back?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Difficult
Don't
to
worry,
see.
don't worry.
Your question is, do you need relationships and so forth to be innovative? Is that what you asked?
No, actually, as a psychology student, I mean that the most thing that we have to consider is psychological behavior about our customers or perspectives. Yeah, this is the most thing that we have to consider. We have to think about. This is like psychology. This is what you meant from your presentation. This is what I mean.
I'll tell you this, that physicians, psychologists, general practitioners, all physicians are actually taking more and more courses now in universities that are teaching them how to have relationships, bedside manner, how to use emotion. You actually, it didn't sound like you were asking me a question, you were just making a statement, am I correct?
Yeah, exactly. This is what you want to deliver from this presentation, that we have to consider psychology more than anything else.
I think that you have to consider all of it together. I want to emphasize that emotion is critically important, process is critically important, innovation, all of these things, purpose, but you can't have one without the other. Even with psychology and understanding what makes people tick, you still have to have an understanding of how to get from point A to point B and create that experience for the customer, for the patient, whoever it is. Thank you for the question.
Next question, please. Can we have a microphone for Tan Sri right up front?
Hello, sir.
Oh, we have a question back here. Yes, ma'am.
ma'am. So I have a question. When we talk about branding, one of the important things would be the channel of distribution of the branding. So may I ask, how do we know which one is the best? We know the emerge of the digital media platform and also versus the advertising platform and something. So how do we know which one is the best? Thank you.
It's a great question, and there's not a best in marketing and in branding. There's not a best, there's a consistency. And whatever you do, you have to be consistent in your purpose. I will tell you this, and I mean this, you look at companies that do not make it, that fail, their number one objective is money, shareholder happiness, bottom line, P&L, and when their number one objective is money, they change all the time. They make decisions they would not normally make, decisions that go against their values and against their purpose. There's no one branding effort that's better than the other. Now you have internet marketing, and SEO, and SEM, and you have all the other things that weren't around 20 years ago. But what you have to do is stay consistent in your message. And I showed you the very first thing out of my presentation was showing you websites that had verbiage on it that didn't make a lot of sense. So you have to make sure you're consistent, and even when you type something or you write something, it has to be relevant and emotional. Does that answer your question? Thank you very much.
A question from Tan Sri up front, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very touched and sorry to hear about your grant.
Thank you.
In Malaysia, actually, we have a similar situation, but not on chart, on the road. What we are talking like today, average Malaysia, average every day, about 20 people die on the road. And a lot of people are very young. And that figure is just too high, about 7,000, without fail. And cases like that, I'd like to ask your ideas, how to actually go about it. Is it setting up a foundation like what you do in US will really help?
Change, yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And changing behavior is the hardest thing. And that's what you're asking to do. You're asking to change behavior. The reason people are dying on the road is they're driving too fast, they're texting, they're using their phones, whatever it is they're doing, they're eating food. And changing that behavior is difficult because they cannot imagine that anything like that will ever happen to them. Okay, so they're going to keep doing it because it's never happened to them before. When we speak to parents and grandparents, I say this to them. I say, do you honestly think that I would ever, in my wildest imagination, think that I would get a phone call telling me that my granddaughter was killed by a television? And then we put up pictures of children from 7 months old to 14 years old that for some weird reason a dog ran into the TV, they're throwing a ball, fell over on the baby sitting in a bassinet. We show them all these pictures of little children, the day they were born, the day they died, exactly like my granddaughter. And what you need to do is you need to make people understand that it can happen to you. You have to have that kind of a message. You're not invincible. You're not superhuman. It will happen to you. And I think, again, it's a lot to try to change behavior, but that's how you do it. You need to make it relevant. And you have to use real experiences. Thank you. Great question. Anybody else?
One final question. Okay, the gentleman here. Yeah, one final question.
Good evening. My name is Tangavelu from Kuala Lumpur, Selangor Indian Chambers. How can empathy and feelings can be seen in this internet and digitalization world?
How can empathy and what? I'm sorry.
Feelings.
How do you transmit it onto the to internet, for example?
Great question. I just did several programs for companies like Equifax, TransUnion, Dish TV. They're entire divisions that do nothing but communicate electronically to their customers. And they're losing customers because they made a decision that we're going to cut out the human beings, and we're going to save money, and we're going to communicate electronically. But the difference between the spoken word and their electronic word was night and day. I said it before, if you want to create empathy, even digitally, everything you say, write, and do has to be relevant. I have to understand that this is about me, not about you. Don't put stuff up there that talks about you. Put stuff up there that's going to affect me. Is what you do going to impact my life? Put it in writing. If you put that in writing and you do it the right way, it's going to have an effect. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a big round of applause. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks. Thank you.